almost there.
What episode is this? 7, 6,
8.
8?
Maybe. I can't remember.
It's
This
the first episode of the new year, right?
It is.
Yep.
So just call it Volume 2, Episode 1.
I tell you, man, the whole disconnect.
2.1.
Exactly, 2.1.
The whole disconnect over Christmas and New Year's is it's knocked me a bit, hey. We we're on a steady roll coming through the end of last year, and then on comes Christmas and the big move, and then New Year's, and it's just wham. And this is actually the first time this year that it feels like I'm getting some sort of semblance of normality back. So
Are you all set back up?
Yeah, all set back up, Joe. Took the first photos of the factory yesterday and made sure a first test run and all that crap, and it's all running back up normal. It's nice to have space back. You know, living in Auckland was very claustrophobic from a manufacturing perspective, but up here I can crash, bang, clatter, and resin smells and hot metal casting to my heart's content, so I don't get any moaning neighbours or disappearing neighbours' pets.
Was that all set up out in that building, or is it like in your garage?
No, that's in a separate building. I've got a dedicated shed for that equipment, which I built years ago when I first had Flashpoint. So that's now running Flytrap, and I've got a 20-foot container which I use as a studio out in the backfield, and obviously I've got my workstation here, which sort of is in a separate part of the house. So
Kim is trying her best to keep him out of the house.
she is. she always does. But yeah, so
she's gonna come and lock you in there one day when you're in there. She's gonna come put the padlock on the door.
Yeah, she will.
And it's summertime there, right? So it's getting pretty warm.
Yeah,
you keep it air conditioned, or how do you?
No, it never gets. I mean, here we're shaded. We're in we're in a rural area, so there's lots of trees and shelter and stuff around, and we always keep the house wide open, run sliders open, the windows all open. So no, it's a nice breeze coming through constantly all day. There's some days where it gets pretty damn hot.
I mean, in the summer you've got to watch out for orcs, though, right?
For hawks?
Orcs.
Oh, orcs. Yeah, they come down out of the mountains. But
being in Middle Earth, there,
they don't They don't like the sunlight, Josh.
No, that's true. That's a good point. Well, you might just have dwarves stealing your gold.
The orcs are a problem, though. Yeah, they come and eat our veggie garden and squat dump in the sand pit.
Have we started this thing? Can we just start?
We're warming up. All right, Joe. Where are you from, Joe? I know you're in the United States. What's that?
You roll us in, Jono.
Right outside of, like 20 minutes north of D.C. in a little town called Gambrills, Maryland. That's my location. Right next to there's a military base 5 minutes down the road. That's where I work at. So that's where we set up shop.
Cool.
So, yeah. Yep, Maryland, USA.
Nice. I wonder how far you are from Eli then, because Eli's Loud Ninja Games is based in...
He's in
Washington State.
Oh,
you're not from the U.S., so you're okay. You're actually on opposite sides of the country. Washington
He's closer to Josh than I am.
Yeah.
Oh,
okay. Don't feel bad, Anton, because there's Americans that don't know that.
That's true.
Okay.
That is true.
No, but I always thought that Eli was just north of, I'll just shut up.
He's in Ohio for some reason. I don't know why.
That is weird.
So, do you actually work for the military?
No. I am a humble civil servant.
Okay.
Yep.
You've been doing that for a while?
Pencil sharp, professional paper puncher, as it were. So that's what I do during the day, and then World's End Publishing is what I do for at night when we put the baby down, and that's where the fun begins.
I know how that goes.
Who's doing something to the cat? I can hear a cat being strangled or something.
Yeah, she's trapped. I shut the door to keep the baby out, and now she's trapped in here and not happy about it.
Oh, I thought.
Yes, but mine can hear it and is totally freaked out.
I don't think Josh's cats ever show any sadness. They're too happy.
They're happy cats.
If you hear that, that is the sound of a 14-month-old baby pounding on the door, trying to get in.
Did you lock the baby outside? Lock the baby outside?
Kick that baby out.
Yeah.
Well, I have my, you would call it a den. I call it my gaming room. And, we can have a door to shut the baby out. So, yeah. So, I do have a perimeter.
Yep.
As it were.
Razor wire?
What?
Razor wire? Electric fences?
I thought you said reservoir. I'm like, what? I don't know.
Oh, cool. So, okay, Joe, tell us, man. World's End Publishing. Tell us about this little company that's popped up in the last sort of 12, 18 months and taken the indie gaming scene by storm.
By storm. Gentle wind breeze, I call it.
A wafting fragrance.
A wafting fragrance. So, I would say about 3 years ago, I was doing historical gaming. I was still kind of doing GW gaming, and I realized that I really missed playing those warband games that I played when I was like 18 and 19. So that have been, the late 90s, early 2000s, like Necromunda, Mordheim, all those. And I was playing Fallout 3, and I'd always been a runner of the Fallout series, but Fallout 3 actually takes place in Maryland, like where I'm from. I used to live in Greenbelt, where actually that whole area is where I went to work for a period of time. So like metro tunnels, all that stuff was like, I knew that. And like that kind of creative mumbo jumbo combined with like, I really want to play that in a game form. I really want to put models on the table. I want to have fun. And it's not just Fallout. I also had a huge love of the post-apocalyptic genre, so I really wanted to throw all those into an incubator and see what I come up with. So for about 3 years, I wrote a set of rules that were originally called Kitchen Sink, because the idea was nothing was off the table. I was throwing in every rule set. I was looking at all the rules I could find. What are people thinking about? How are games played today versus like back in the day? I go, you go was everything. I move all my models. And then people are kind of, we're like, then we started getting like the card activation and I'll move a model, you move a model. And I really liked a gaming concept that Andrea from Ganesha Games, and I will give him the credit. I think it was his idea for rolling for activation. And I really liked that idea of, you take a risk. How many things is my model going to do? I'm going to take a risk. And I really thought that was a very cool concept. And I actually ran a lot of my game. I initially ran a lot of post-apocalyptic games using his rules, Mutants and Death Ray Guns, which is a great rule set. But I kind of wanted a little more crunch. So that's really the kind of the impetus of where, let me see what I can kind of come up with my own. Let me do, it's, at some point you want to take something you want to create something of your own. Kind of, what can I come up with? And that's kind of where the rule set came from. And it's a hodgepodge. I like to call it, it's Fallout meets Gamma World meets Order of Leibowitz, if you've ever read that, and a ton of other post-apocalyptic books, video games, the original Wasteland, just all the kind of stuff like that. And here we are today. I was playtesting for years, and that's kind of the short story of how where I am, how I've gotten here today. We released in May of this year. I mean, I'm kind of not, I don't consider myself a businessman. I consider myself a hobbyist who just happens to have to run a business to get the models he wants. So like that, the running joke in the miniatures industry is if you want to earn $1 million, you need to start with 2.
Yep.
So, but I am super excited because I can more or less say that I have officially broken even with, so I think TNT has done well enough to actually pay for development costs, the art, all that stuff. So I'm 38. I'm not a young cat anymore, and I decided that instead of going crazy midlife crisis, buying maybe a classic car or something, I'm gonna make a miniature game. And that's kind of basically what I did.
Is 38 the year we're meant to start going through our midlife crisis? Because I missed that fine print. I'm the same age, Joe.
Well, to get personal real quick, my father died at 50.
Oh.
So I'm always in the back of my head. We don't know how long we have. So assuming I live to 80 might be, wishful thinking for a lot of folks. So I'm not going to wait till I'm 40.
So we should have started going through our midlife crisis around 25.
I should have started. Yeah.
About 25.
But, and, to pull it back from that kind of, so I just decided, I convinced my wife. I'm like, look, I've been playing GW games for since 1997. So I had this bulk of stuff I really wasn't using anymore. So I said, as long as I don't risk our financial future, I will sell stuff off, and I will slowly put, you over time. I mean, it took me 3 years to buy the art, to get the play testing together, and then within the last 6 months is when I finally, dropped a nice chunk of change to get the layout done and all of that. And I think, I think the quality shows. If you look at the rulebook, I think it's equivalent. I think it competes nicely to what the bigger guys with
absolutely does
full time do. I don't do this full time. I come home from work, I do dinner, baby, down at 7:30, and then 2 hours every night doing this.
Yeah.
So it's like a part-time job. It's a lot of work, but I think for a guy that doesn't write rules all day, I did pretty good. I'm happy with the results.
Joe,
so,
I've got a printed copy of your book, and I
yes.
intend to buy the hard copy as soon as you release them.
Oh, yes.
That was the first thing that struck me about TNT. Before I even started reading anything, it just the quality, the production quality, the production values that you've captured with this rule set.
Well,
they put the big boys to shame in a lot of ways.
I will tell you, there's 2 reasons for that. Those reasons are Dave Taylor and I forgot my lead artist's name. So
Good job.
David Urbanus. David was the principal artist, so all the chapter headings, I would say 75% of the art he did. I found him when he had just graduated from art school, and he's a freelancer out of Spain, and he does great work. And then the layout and the overall design was Dave Taylor. Now, have you guys heard of Dave Taylor?
Yeah, from Dave Taylor.
Yeah, if you're familiar with White Dwarf from the early 2000s, all those crazy, awesome armies that he did.
Yeah.
Now he does Dave Taylor Miniatures, which is his own. He used to do photography for War Games Illustrated after he left GW, and then he kind of started his own business called Dave Taylor Miniatures. And among everything, he does photography.
All kinds of different companies too. And it's painted by Dave.
Oh yeah, he's got figured a lot of pies.
He does.
And I will tell anybody if you want to throw money at something and get that money thrown back at you, he is the man, because he did the photography and he did the layout, and it's amazing. It really is. I'm so happy, and he does and I'm continuing to use him for all the future supplements until he says no. But I'm sorry?
You know where he's located? Dave Taylor?
He is actually in Baltimore. He is 40 minutes away from me.
Okay, cool.
So that's why, I actually know him because one of the other things I do is there's the organization called the Historical Miniature Gaming Society that's more East Coast. And there's some other branches in the U.S., but they run 3 historical conventions. Historicon, which is the largest historical miniatures convention in the U.S., and Cold Wars and Fallen. And as part of that organization, I teach at Hobby University, which is a collection of people who teach painting, terrain building, everything from 3D printing to all kinds of stuff. It's a really wonderful, non-profit, volunteer-driven organization. And I met Dave, and I joined that a couple years ago, and I made a lot of great friends, and I got introduced to Dave that way. And we kind of he's like, I want to do this, and he's like, okay, I'll talk to you about it. And we sat down, and he kind of walked me through the process, because I'm still learning a lot about the business, about how things are done, and he was really instrumental. I mean, I got the hobby side set, you know, I make all my own terrain, you know, miniatures, all that stuff, but when it talks, like, with the adulting, as it were, of the game industry, you know, I needed a little help, and you know, people have been very, very open, and it's been a very great experience. People really offer a hand in this industry. Say other industries where it's more cutthroat, where it's like we're talking about little metal men, so it's a fun hobby, and I think it builds this nice camaraderie among what essentially are almost competing businesses.
Yeah,
but it's great.
It's funny. The first time this is not a test came to me was through a good friend of mine, Daniel Linder of TCAL, that club out west in West Auckland when I was based in Auckland. Dan's a great guy, and he's a great ambassador for the line. And TCAL with Damien Reed and Daniel Linder and Greg Lockton and them, they sort of took it, embraced it, and ran with it. And they've Damien Caulfield, they've got the whole campaign thing going strong. And
they've been really good.
Yeah, they're top guys, top ambassadors for the system. And
it's actually funny, and I can't tell you why, but considering TCAL in New Zealand, and then in Australia, there's Jaden Barr and his friends. They actually ran games for me at PAX Australia, which was amazing. They're like, yeah, we'll do it. You know, just out of the kindness of their hearts, because they love the system. And I would say a good, if not 25%, I'd say at least maybe higher, 50% of my sales is to the Southern Hemisphere from those two. You guys are a great market. I love you.
Australia, New Zealand, Antarctica.
Yep. I don't know why. Maybe it's maybe Mad Max movies spilled into the blood a little bit, and it's that, you know, the post-apocalypse. But it's great out there.
We just find it all shiny and chrome.
Oh. All right. So this is not a test; is a skirmish game, correct?
Yes.
Could you describe a little bit about that? Like, are we talking like you name your characters and you give them, you know? I read something about you give them mutations. There's little attributes that you.
So the way the rules work is let me see how I can break this down. So the game is between 8 and 20 models aside. So basically, if you've played, I'll give you an example. So the idea was, I really like the Necromunda Warband system. So instead of like playing a character, like it's almost like what they call RPG Light. So instead of running a single character, you're running, a warband, a tribe, or, a syndicate, whatever you want to call it. It's not an army, it's a small group of guys who are going out and skirmishing. And so you get what I call barter. The game has, for points, it's called barter script, what's the trading between settlements. And that can be medical supplies or even bottle caps or what have you. And that sets your points up, and a starter warband will have about 400 of those. And then from that, you have to buy your leader. You can buy some elite guys, rank and files, and some specialists. And so that, if you're kind of familiar with that kind of thing, and from then on, you can give them, there's weapon lists, and there's very few restrictions on the weapons you can give them. So if you really want your big guy with a sniper rifle, you can do it. There's 6 different warbands in the book, and they're all pretty much the standard post-apocalyptic tropes. There's raiders, there's tribals, your primitive type of guys who still fear technology a little bit. You have what I call peacekeepers, which are kind of a combination of your wasteland ranger types who bring law and order for a price. There's your caravanners, who are your classic traders. And of course there's mutants, and there's skills you can buy for them, and mutants can buy mutations or skills. So I think the book has, between mutations and skills, there's 60 of those. So there's a lot of customization. And one of the things I like about this is I sell my own miniatures, but I really push the game as miniatures neutral.
Yeah.
I really want folks to dig their miniatures out that they've got. You've got an old Necromunda warband, you can use it. I've seen people build stuff out of War Machine. I've seen, Reaper, the Reaper stuff,
yep.
Bones, all that. Like, you can get a warband on the table for $10 if you start to look at Reaper Bones.
Yeah, that was another thing that I thought was super cool with the guys out west, their club out west. Just the vast array of figures that came out of the cobwebs, out of the woodwork, and the improv, the customization, the conversions and modification. Damien Caulfield, another one, was specifically good at that.
Oh yeah, I've seen some really cool stuff done.
Yeah,
and then the book has there's there's a bestiary in there with 30 different critters that could show up, and just seeing the people's conversions for that. I kind of give you this is what it kind of looks like. It's a giant snapping turtle, for instance, and somebody found the model of one, put it on the table. Giant ants, rad mutants, rad roaches, all that stuff. It's amazing what people come up with, and then I tell people, they're like, "Can I use this model?" And I think it's kind of an American question and not so much a British question. I've actually had the discussion with people from multiple game designers where there's kind of competing sense of how wargaming should be. Either it's I can do whatever I want as long as it's specifically in the rules, or I can only do what the rules tell. I can do whatever I want I can do. Hold on, I'm trying to get this right. Unless I'm forbidden, I can do it, or it's up or whatever I want to do. And then people come to me and they're like, "I want to be able to do this." I'm like, "Look, it's just a rule. Make it work for you. The rules are just there to have fun. You don't need my permission to have fun." So,
Josh, just sorry to butt in, Joe. As a rules designer yourself, Josh, do you see that split, that division as well?
Definitely. I mean, I think we talked about this before. I think it's a little different, but people would come up and look at the quar and say, "Well, what rules are they for?" And at first I was like, "Well, they're for whatever rules you want, right? There's stuff from Ganesha Games or whatever else." And about half the people would go, "Oh, okay," and they'd walk off. And I do agree. I think that is a very American thing. Because I mean, I've always sold a ton of stuff to the UK and to Australia, and I think and when those guys post up on the forums, it's always their own rule sets, or they've mixed them into something else or whatever. And it's a very different sort of thing. I don't know why. I also feel like I also feel like the UK is very club oriented.
Yes,
the US
very
is very
much so.
The US is very tournament oriented, and
Yes.
that probably feeds into it, right? It's not the rule, but it is sort of the majority.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at the most popular games are War 40K and War Machine, and War Machine especially is built for tournament play.
Yeah.
And I'm not one to say your type of fun is wrong. So it's just it's what game experience do you want? And I'm TNT, believe it or not, they actually, I think it was Jaden Barr's group. They actually, I don't think it was TCal that actually did a TNT tournament.
TCal running the campaign. Huh? TCal running the campaign. They ran an active campaign.
They came up with tournament rules for it, where it wasn't hardcore tournament, but they came up with how can you build a warband and run it through 8 games in one day. It was kind of funny.
Yeah.
I'm going to pull it back. I think TNT gives you an excuse. I mean, it gives you an excuse to go into the cupboard, break out those miniatures you haven't touched in years, or you thought, "Oh man, that's a cool miniature. How can I use it?" Because at the end of the day, a raider with a club is a raider with a club. That could be a guy in a Civil War uniform. That could be an ape with a rifle. It doesn't really matter. It's just is that your definition? Because that's awesome. So, and I really want people to be enthusiastic about what they can bring, and that's why I always try to I'm giving people a framework to do the post-apocalypse, because it's one of the selling points of the post-apocalypse is everything's on the table. That that's why I really like the Fallout how they took it. You know, they're like, let's do what you would call like super science stuff. And, you know, it's, you know, and so that way we can have laser weapons and power armor. And it also, and, you know, that also reinforces how far society has fallen.
Yeah.
So it's just really, when you can put almost anything, you know, I think something short of like a giant dragon, which might be a little hard to shoehorn in, but
they'll find a way.
You know, hey, the first person that does.
It'd be some mutant gecko.
Not if you're doing the Shannara Chronicles, which are basically...
That is I stand corrected. That's right. That is correct. I stand corrected.
It'd be some mutant gecko with wings.
Yeah, there you go.
So do the rules and book and everything, do they translate to other scales, or is this pretty much...
So the rules are written for 28 millimeter, as that's my preferred scale. However, there is a burgeoning movement that we call hashtag 15 millimeter TNT, 15 mm TNT that we post on, and it's being have you guys Harold Crossley?
Yeah.
Of Clear Horizon Games. First of all, absolutely wonderful human being, and he's actually given me a lot of help for the last couple of years with getting TNT off the ground, and he really loves 15 millimeter. He's one of the driving forces behind that part of the industry. And he's played TNT at 15 millimeter with no, and you know, when you're doing 15 millimeter, the common consensus is just half of your ranges. But he's been playing it without altering anything, and he says it works. Ground scale line, it works fine. It actually makes the weapon ranges a little more realistic.
People are finding the same with the bolt action and 15 millimeter movement as well, and
yeah, I mean, I tell people up front, you know. When I give you weapon rules, they're not realistic at all. It's they are driven by game balance and what I think approximate a fun experience. So, you know, they're meant to be balanced against each other, not what a shotgun can do, what a riot cup holding a shotgun can do. It doesn't matter realistically. So I think, you know, when you translate that to, I'm just going to do 15 millimeter, not going to change anything, it still works. I mean, I know your base size is a little different, and there can be some, you know, you'll need to finagle a few things maybe once in a while, but those should be more of a rarity, more than a common thing you have to worry about. Yeah. And you know, and I've seen there's a couple people doing it. I've seen some really cool stuff, and like we mentioned, Eli Arndt before, he does through a lot of Ninja games. He does mutants. Yeah. And you know, 15 millimeter, what's tempting is HO scale buildings. Or, you know, you could do a village 28 millimeter, or you can start looking at doing towns in 15. Yeah. So that's why that temptation is always there.
Nah, totally. It's it'd be interesting. I'm sure there's a lot in the works in the pipeline behind the scenes from various manufacturers, but I'm surprised that there hasn't been more of an effort towards, you know, producing larger, more diverse ranges.
In 15 or 28?
15.
Yeah. Well, I tell people this, and I think people in 15 millimeter, and I've had people agree with me kind of behind the scenes, the 15 millimeter miniature folks are really almost giving away their miniatures.
Yeah, they are.
For the amount of sculpting costs, for the amount of, you know, it's not like it's getting any cheaper to make, it's just that they're smaller. You know, when you're selling, you know, like miniatures for cents on the dollar, it's like, it's hard. Their profit margins are so, you know, I hate to make the pun, their profit margins are smaller.
But even from a sculpting perspective,
yeah,
Joe, there are some 15 mil figures that I've spent more time on than some 28s.
Yeah.
I've been, you know,
because it's not the 70s anymore. A blob with a kind of gun-looking thing on it is no longer. People want it to look nice, and it's not like it's not like it's any easier to put out a 15 mil, you know, miniature.
Yeah, and with
I think people have gotten used to paying a certain price, and they're like, well, if it gets any higher, I'm not going to pay that price.
Yeah,
and you know, it's like the cost of miniatures is just going up. It's just, you know, commodities are increasing. That's it.
And with scale creep being an issue, you're finding, you know, there's less sort of disparity between scales, and And
I mean, that was a conscious decision I had to make for my miniatures. Was, you know, a lot of the guys now are going 32 to 35, and 35 is taking off with like the Batman miniatures game. And what, you know, when I said I wanted to do my own miniatures, I wanted them to mix with my stuff I already had. So I went with the 20 to 30 mil. Yeah, that was where I wanted to go. With occasionally a sculptor who does a little bigger, you know, it doesn't really matter too much. It's a little vague, but yeah. So
no, it's cool. Well, I'm sure that in time it's it'll grow. In the scale 50 mil, you'll see more stuff come out, especially with
I know Harry
with Harold's at
kind of. I think he wants to do some stuff, and he's just kind of like, you know. I can't speak for him, but I know in the back of his head he would love to do some post-apocalyptic stuff himself, and he's already got a great little start. His miniatures are very cool for that hard-edge sci-fi look, and he could easily slide into it. I hope he does. And Eli's got some great stuff. There's Kurasan does some 15 post-apocalyptic stuff with wonderful sculpts, and there's a couple other I'm forgetting, I'm sure. Yeah. So I mean, there's definitely enough on the market right now to go play a TET game with 50 millimeter miniatures, and I really hope to see more of it. It's really cool.
Yeah, for sure, totally.
Agreed.
So where to from here for TNT? You've got the PDF available to people via your website. You've got the prospect of a hard copy in print soon, hopefully, maybe. I'm not sure, but where do you sort of see things going from here?
The hardback book has been my sword of Damocles since I came out with that rule book. It has been hanging over me. You know, the first question since I put out that PDF is, where's the hardback book coming out? And that thing has been wrestling an alligator. As you know, just as a guy who wants to put out a rule set, you know, like, if you're Osprey or anyone that size, you can go to China and print out 2,000 books. They'll
fall apart on you 2 weeks into it, but
yeah, I mean, it's a little more complicated than that. You know, what Osprey does is because Osprey's really good at it. They're a very professional set. They've got the numbers down. Me as Joe Schmo, who's hoping to sell 100 hardcover books, realistically, you know, most printers are like, well, we can do it, but we're going to charge you a lot of money. In fact, most cost estimates that I got, I already kind of feel the book is more. The book is not at the price point I would like it to make it more accessible. But that's the challenge of doing anything bespoke, small run, niche. You know, that's just the nature of the beast. But they were like, where I may have made a quarter on a $50 book. That's the margins that I was. It is brutal. And
can I ask a couple questions then really quick? How many pages is your book?
172.
172. And what size is it?
It's 8 by 11.
8.5 by 11?
Standard, yep.
Alright, hold on.
I was going to ask that same question, but for probably a different reason. Josh is doing math.
Well, I'm going through lightning source.
Right, so how much do they want for the book?
20.
I knew Josh was going to jump in here. I saw the cogs working in his mind.
I did too. I noticed his face change.
Yeah, he got all quizzical.
$10.40 each.
Are you shitting me?
How much?
That's from Lightning Source, man. I don't know what you're looking at.
Joe,
I can't use. Well, that's hardback. Well, is that soft cover or hardback? I need hardback.
That's hardback.
Full color?
Yeah.
$10.
So here's what you're probably doing. You're probably selecting premium color. Oh, let me do that. Sorry,
what was the total again, Josh?
$10.40 to do it hardcover.
Joe, I flicked through these details to you a while back, mate. And
so hold on. So you're probably picking premium color, which seems like what you want. But I do all my books, all our books, Anton's books, through Lightning Source. And the premium color actually looks worse than the standard color. The colors are off. We made this switch a while ago. So, like our Shield Bash and our Shield Wall books, right? Because art and the way it looks is super important to me. But I was paying $12 or $13 each for those books because I had premium color. And we did something else in standard color, and I was looking at it, I'm like, holy crap, this looks so much better than the other books. And so I talked to them, we did a couple things, and they sent me a copy of Shield Bash in standard color that looked better than premium. The premium is really for art books, like a photo book, right? You want the heavy paper, you want premium color. So you should call them and see if they'll just do a test print for you at standard color.
I have, well, the trick is I use a lot of pictures.
So do I.
So you're saying, because my experience was the opposite. I have a friend who was involved in the printing of another book, and he used my guy is Ingram Spark. I don't qualify for Lightning Source, but it's their their POD component of the same company. And he said he had seen the non-premium, and he said it didn't look good at all. So you're saying
all of our books are now standard color, and they used to be premium. And the only person that can tell the difference is like me and Anthony, and we actually think it looks better. So you might want to look into it. I don't know why you can't use Lightning Source itself.
I'm not a publishing house. They told me.
I'm not a publishing house.
I don't know either. I applied to them, and they turned me down.
That's
I
weird.
don't know.
Because I mean, for me, all they've ever said is, "Do you have an ISBN number?" I'm like, "Well, yes," because I went and bought one. So that's interesting. Yeah, maybe the Ingram side of it, the regular side of it, charges more. But yeah, that's how I do all my books. And you know, I do like a 160-page softcover book, and I think I pay $3 each. So I mean, that's softcover, not hardcover. But so you should look at that, because Another World's Edge we're doing in hardcover, and it's super cheap, and I just priced it out to my account, and it's $10.40 for standard color hardcover.
How many pages did Netherworld's Edge end up, Josh? I can't remember.
That's like 70. It's not
so
172.
Okay.
$3. If I could get this sucker for $10, my God, I would charge less. Like, I'm amazed that Bolt Action's $35. I'm like, who are these guys? So cheap. You know, I'd love to sell less. You know, pricing.
Cool.
Yeah, I would check into it, because.
Okay, so you're saying, I mean, I'll look at that. I don't know if I have to. I can look on my account. Maybe I can try and maybe I'll run off another. It took me so long to get these. I mean, this took me so long to get this set up. Like, not even kidding. Like, I get the question every week about when the hardback is, and it was such a fight. And I was about ready to throw in the towel so many times with doing a hardback. And then I finally got in my hand, like, all right, that's the price. We're done.
Right. Well, yeah. Let me know if I can help. But when I was making that decision, because when I started, they didn't have standard color. They only had the premium color.
Yeah.
So I got them to do a test for me and send me a test book. And like I said, it looks better. It more closely matches. Because we do all our art mostly on the screen, so it more closely matches our digital art on the screen, and that's more important to me. The premium color seems to have a little bit of a green to everything that the standard does not.
Okay. All right, I'll run it.
Options are opening.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about the book, how you made it, how you got it made. You said Dave Taylor was involved. So there's pictures of miniatures all set up and things like that. Do you have paintings as well? Drawings, sketches?
I have. There's 172 pages. So there's picture. I had Dave Arenas, who I don't want to say. I can't remember the exact number of pieces of art that are in the book. It
must be a lot, because it's mostly full color, beautiful illustrations, photographs as well. It's not even talking about photographs.
30 to 40 illustrations in the book. Double that number probably if you're counting pictures. I mean, like when we did the photos. So if you see in the back of the book, I have pretty pictures. I don't know if I can kind of show it of terrain.
I'll snap some pictures off you after Joe and throw them up in the
I myself, just as a collector, have like 4x tables worth of terrain, a bucket of terrain. So we sat down and we spent 8 hours taking pictures, rearranging things. And so, because I mean, like, the art is super, it was presentation. It was super important to me. I wanted it to look cool. I mean, I could have gone black and white. I could have done, stock. I don't think there's a single piece of stock art actually in here. I could have done that. Like before I started getting Dave go crazy, I was like going to Drive Through RPG. I was buying all these stock art sets to kind of, you buy like 10 pictures for $10 and you can use them, as long as you give the right, you tell them you're using them. And I decided that's useful if you're just trying to put a product out there, but it wasn't speaking the voice that I wanted to speak in. So that's why I decided that I really wanted to kind of do my own thing. So that's where, I was looking for newer artists rather than the more industry established, because I got some quotes for art from for one piece was my entire budget plus $1,000. So, as long as you're kind of willing to wait and find the right artist or artists. And I've got a couple guys right now working on stuff, and I'm really, one of my newest additions was a gentleman from Eastern Europe called Dario Giselic. Giselic is his name. And he did the cover. Have you seen the Mutant Cannibal supplement?
No.
The cover for that man's art is brilliant. He is so good. His line work. I mean, he did the artwork for that. Just go to the website now. Look at the Mutant Cannibal supplement. Look at that cover. That guy, and I'm going to be using him more in the future because that artwork is so cool. Of course, price goes up a little bit too.
Yeah. So you were saying it took 3 years to finance the art for the book.
It took. Well, Kickstarter's been around for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
And I wanted to prove to myself and to my future customers that I could do this on my own. I wanted to prove to myself that if TNT is successful, it is because I made it successful. Which I hope does not sound egotistical. Yes. But I really wanted to kind of prove that, okay, we can make money doing this. I'm not going to get rich doing this. I'm not going to quit my day job. That's the dream, but that's not going to happen. I don't sculpt or art. I don't do actually anything really super creative like art or sculpting or something that's really cool or layout, but, I do come up with ideas.
No,
rules
design's a whole discipline.
I'm sorry?
Rules design's a whole discipline and art form in its own right.
So, yeah. So, and part of the fun is I really actually do enjoy employing creatives. They're really fun to say, here's this idea, run with it. And that's, buying art, I just love it. I wish I could buy original art and hang it all over my room, but I can't. That's the kind of the lack of fun of digital artwork now, is that you really can't. You can print it out, but it's not like someone, I've got over to the right here, the monster pictures were actually drawn on matte board and scanned in. I've got those hanging on the wall, and I love them, by Matthew Roberts, who does my monster artwork, and he does a really cool watercolor kind of look to them. And
so it's all traditional art. That's cool.
Yeah, so I love that. And so anyway, back to my original point. It took 3 years because you basically have to save money, spend money, go in the hole, as it were, and then slowly dig your like any business. You start with some feet, And, when I would go to HMGS cons, I would go to the flea market and I would sell boxes of stuff, walk away with $1,000 from that, and then say, okay, I'm going to go buy some art. And over time, and, in play testing really that takes a long time. Especially when you're starting out as an unknown, there's a lot of generous people, but there's not a ton of them. And it's hard to find people really willing to say, okay, I'm going to read your 172-page book, not knowing you at all, and then give you line-by-line feedback. Those people are a rarity.
Yeah.
So if you find them, my God, hold on to them. Don't let them go. Now, could GW walk into any gaming store and say, I need someone to copy-proof the new codex? You'll have 30 people falling over themselves. We don't have that luxury.
Yeah.
So, and as you get bigger, you do find more people. And I do have a small set of playtesters. But at first it was just my wife or some friends who would get frustrated as I kind of delved into things. And and so far, I don't want to jinx myself, but I haven't really heard negative reviews about the rule mechanics.
No.
I haven't had anyone say, I hate this. No.
I hate this.
Josh just likes to be difficult.
Sorry.
He does.
My system does use an activation roll, so there is a chance you foul that roll, your model will not do he'll do something, but not as much as you want him to do. And I've had people say, I hate those systems, but I'll play your game. So you as a game designer, you can't be everything to everyone. So when I know that I'm not going to hit, there's certain types of gamers I'm never going to get because they don't like the gaming experience that I'm selling, and that's okay because it's different. It's a big gaming world, and that's totally cool. But when I find the right people, they go, I love what you're doing. This is exactly what I wanted and what I've been missing. I've actually had that happen a few times. And nothing makes my day more than when some random person on the internet that just says, you're awesome. I like, it's better than like making an actual sale. It's like, I can't explain it.
I frequent the This Is Not a Test Facebook page quite regular. And I mean, the amount of feedback coming from that is a resounding positive.
Yeah.
So you're definitely doing something right, Joe.
Well, Facebook is taking over forums.
Yeah,
for I think keeping communities together, just because as a game designer, I can instantly be on there. I don't have to keep tracking posts.
It's all real time communication.
There's really some really like Lead Adventure Forum, the Post Apoc Forum, DACA. They're all wonderful, and they're not going anywhere. Their death knell is a long way away. But really, to be, you gotta be. I don't want to say you gotta be on Facebook, but it definitely doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to just, say I'm working on a piece. So I've been working on some new relics for an upcoming book. And I'm like, oh, here's something to kill your warbands with later. This weapon that freezes you, cryo weapons, or something. And people, you get feedback and people enjoy that.
Yeah.
And it, you just kind of get feedback from the community. And, I think one of the challenges of being, having a book is, and it takes a lot of work to do this, but, rule books can become orphans. We like to say that, a game is never complete, but if I give you a rule book, there's no reason you can't play 2nd edition 40K. It's a complete game. There's nothing literally stopping you. But for some reason, there's just something about the human mind when something is no longer supported.
Yeah.
That just the player base dwindles.
Invalidated.
This is my biggest. No offense to my customers. This is my biggest pet peeve with gaming. Is I can't have a small cool idea that's like 20 figures total in one rule book. I can't do that. People are like, oh well, this is it. I'm like, yeah, that's it. It's one little situation, one rule book. Get it for super cheap, but there's a bunch of play in there, and I'm like, that doesn't interest me. It drives me nuts.
Drives me nuts too.
This whole rule sets are dead or unsupported. Board gamers don't do that. I still play Hex Encounter war games from the 70s.
Yeah,
right? Those aren't supported.
Yeah.
So
it's human nature. I don't think it's anything like I don't think it's anything unique to our industry. I just think like if you talk to all kinds of like other creative enterprises, I would believe you would find a similar kind of complaint. And but the reverse of that, people really working to keep dead games alive.
Yeah.
Like if you look at Yakromunda, which is this fan-based community that does Necromine and Wartime, they are absolutely amazing. They basically rewrote the rules to what the community wanted. They're like, we love these games so much, and they've been very cool with TNT too, and let it be advertised there. I mean, how many, this core players that just will not let a game die. It's amazing. And, I know some game developers, I'm like, I can't believe you're not kind of doing more to keep your game alive, but
I guess it's a bit of an old guard mentality. I mean, you look at some of the most successful rule systems ever made. And GW aside, you're looking at the likes of the old DBA and DBM systems and the old War Games Research Group, the old Grognard systems from the old guard that have been played since the 70s and are still going strong today.
Yeah.
Wow.
You go to an HMGS convention, you will see WBA playing tables of it.
Yeah.
Now they are their own subsect of miniature gaming, and they are a different piece of
a bunch of grizzly, grumpy, curmudgeon-y old gentlemen. But
I'm not doing that. No.
Apologies to our grumpy, grizzly, curmudgeon-y old fan base.
I love them. There's no right or wrong way to put them to play with little metal man.
That's not how you play Napoleonics. And I say, don't you educate me, son. I was there. I'm always, I go to the conventions and I'm not the guy running the World War II game. I'm the guy running the zombie game. I'm the guy running the post-apocalyptic game, or one of the fun genres is the pulp genre, which is like your Indiana Jones, that kind of stuff. I mean, that's just so cool that we can do these things with miniatures. I love it. There's so many great genres that everyone can play. I've heard the phrase "golden age of gaming" a little bit for kind of this modern times, and you're not short of choices. No.
Which is why, as a game designer, I love my customers because they choose to stick with me.
In fact, you're kind of inundated with choices, which is probably part of the problem too, because every time a new shiny comes along, it's like, well, last week's product's sort of now invalidated.
And then that's kind of the bring back to your original question of what is the TNT development cycle. That's true. Like, I could put this book out tomorrow, and then I could go start working some other rule set. And, over time, it might die on the vine a little bit. There'll be people who like it, but people like novelty.
Yeah.
So they like something a little new. So, that's why, in my head, I'm going a 6-month development cycle. So, like, in 6 months, right now, so we just did Mutant Cannibals back in October, a slightly late Halloween release. And next is what I call the Wasteland Companion. And that is, when I originally wrote the book, it was 200 plus pages. And then we decided, let's key that down a little bit, because 172 pages was already, a significant task of getting it published. So there was a lot of fun stuff that I kind of cut that I would like to give, that I still think is very fun. And I'm also adding new stuff for it. So, for instance, I'll be doubling the amount of mutations, more skills. There's 2 new war bands in there, and just stuff like that. And so, as I keep, because doing the rules is the most fun for me, and because that's where that's the part that I do. That's not the cool artwork. That's not the awesomely sculpted mini that we can all agree are awesome. But that's, when I say that's my contribution, that's how I do. So that's the part that I'm involved in, and that's why, I don't know. That's, that's, I'll keep that train going, as it were.
Well, we've covered the rules, we've covered the art. Tell us a bit about the methods behind the way you've had figures brought to the front.
Okay,
so the sculpting.
My first miniatures were done by a gentleman called Peter Barholdi. I believe he is in the Netherlands. I found him through Daka. I believe he was just doing Nurgle conversions. And he did my Rad Roach, and he did my Psychic Husk. So basically I wrote the rules, and then I don't have what I would say, I have a business plan, but I don't have this business plan I don't have a Conquer the Universe business plan. I'm really doing this because it's fun, and I have passion about it. So it's kind of, what do I think is cool, and what isn't out there already?
Yeah.
Or if it's out there already, I want to put my spin on it. So the first miniatures I did I started with some critters. So, so I did the Razor Rattler, I did the Psychic Husk, which kind of like a floating Psyker looking guy, and I really wanted to do the Rad Roach, which that was the first one I actually did. And then I decided, okay, I need to start looking at my factions, and as I said, between Cobblestone Castings and Hassle Free and War Games Foundry, there's a lot of stuff covered already.
Yeah.
So the piece, your Wasteland Ranger types, which in my head have what, like the campaign hats the state troopers in the U.S. wear. They've got kind of police-looking outfits on, boots, cloaks, hats, kind of like Fallout, the Wasteland Rangers that I've seen Fallout and Wasteland,
Yep.
with a little more police presence to them. So that was the first 5 miniatures I did. They were sculpted by Ernst Weingart, who is, he's in Eastern Europe too. He does a lot of work for Crooked Dice. So if you've seen any of their stuff, you go, that's awesome, he did it. And he's an amazing sculptor. Now, if I could make him sculpt faster, I would love it, because I was like, I just would actually throw money at him, but he's very busy. And so slowly over time, I've added more sculptors. I've got, gosh, I'm trying to remember my miniatures range. So I've got a pack of mutants. So one of the more things I'm excited about is, so back in the 90s, there was a game called Demon Blade, which I didn't play, and I wasn't super familiar with it. But I was introduced to the miniatures from that game, where I went to a convention, and I was like, oh, I wish I had some miniatures, but I can't afford to get them sculpted. Because getting its miniature from someone's head to a table is a very expensive process.
Can be, yeah.
And I found this mutant guy with a flamethrower and 2 heads. And I took this guy home, this is awesome. This is what I want. The character in this miniature was insane. I would love to get this made as a miniature. And then, lo and behold, not a year later, Mega Minis, the gentleman, I believe he calls himself Johnny Cyborg, decided not to get out of the miniatures industry, but he decided to really power down, and he had a lot of rights to different miniature sets. And I was able actually to buy those actual miniatures from him. And I have that miniature I described, I own, I sell. And that was when I went from like a guy that sold 4 miniatures to all of a sudden you're having 10 miniatures.
Yeah.
And you're slowly scaling over time. I've got 19 right now, with another probably doubling that. But kind of the challenge of the industry is as working with creatives, anyone knows you're on their schedule, not yours. So, you get things in time.
Wait, is he insulting the 3 of us right now?
Yeah.
Not at all. Not at all. Never. I would never say anything bad.
Anton.
Actually, some people, the trick is with that, some people are better at communication than the others. And that one matters to me.
Communication's everything,
I really
mate.
do. People are like, when I get an email saying, hey, Joey, I'm running behind because of X, and I'm like, dude, you just bought me 60 days without me even bugging you. Cool. Thank you. Some guys do that, some don't. So it's a little bit of a challenge, but, I don't rock the boat because I can't sculpt, so I don't get to say whether or not someone is slow or not. But, so, yeah, hopefully, I have 2 more miniature, so what am I coming out with? I've got Raiders being worked on. I've got more mutants. The mutants were done by one of the Genovese twins, Nicholas Genovese. Him and his brother, they do work. Federico Genovese actually did my mutant rats. And then, so I have mutants. I have more robots. I have, if you've read the rules, have you seen Johnny Atomic, Anton?
Yep.
He's kind of my 3-dog analog of the Voice of the Wastes.
Yep.
And he's this rockabilly guy. He's actually based on a friend of mine called...
He's awesome.
Called Johnny Newman.
Neutron? Oh.
You might know him from various forums. And he looks just like him. And I actually have that made into a miniature. And I showed on the forum, and it's such a great minute. He's got like a boom mic. Yeah. And it's like this perfect thing.
He's a one-man broadcasting network.
Yeah.
And is it a VW van in the artwork?
Yeah.
Cool.
Old line radio.
Which brings me on to the next question.
One more sunset.
Brings me on to the next question, Joe. Vehicles.
So, I mentioned relics. After Wasteland Companion comes out, 6 months later, there will be a relics book coming. There will be a technology. I don't have a name yet. I'm just calling it the technology book, which will double the amount of relics. will have the robot warband that every 3 people ask me about every day. They're like, when can we do robots? When can we do robots? So it is in there. And there will also be vehicles. Vehicles are hard to do.
From a rules perspective?
You've got a small group of guys. It's not, skirmish wargaming can kind of mean a lot of things from 20 to 100 people. And like if you're even talking about 40K, the old joke is it's like a 40K game is like it's taking part in the car garage because there's all these vehicles you would never see. In 100 dudes, you might see 1 tank.
Yeah.
Realistically, on any battlefield, but 40K's got 6 of them, and vehicles can really change how a game works if you're not careful. So like balancing them, how because a vehicle can be off a table in 1 turn.
Yeah.
I mean, what are they do like 4? If you were like looking at even a short round scale, a bike could travel 48 inches in a second. It's just, how do I make it work? And so that's the question is, vehicles are coming, they're being worked on. The only trick is I will tell people, it will not be auto dueling. There will not be, you just can't take all vehicles.
They're more like a support function, or?
There'll be a support function, so you can kind of do a little bit of Mad Max. There'll be rules for hanging on and jumping between vehicles. It's kind of like Work a little bit. If people it gives people a frame of reference on where you can fit all your guys on the vehicles, but they're not going to dominate. For instance, in no vehicle there will be no tanks. There will be only trucks and cars.
Light vehicles.
There won't be giant walking robots as much as people love them. There'll be no special stealth tanks or anything like that. It's just, how do you get your junker on the table?
Yeah.
Throw 5 guys into it and rush them at the enemy. And that's, that's been, I would say, one of the hardest things I've had to work on rules-wise is how to make that exist in the current rule system.
Joe,
I'm simplifying a lot of things where, but you got to make it all work in totality. So
you might see a decisive increase in 15mm gamers in your system with the introduction of vehicles, because then you do have that room to make it a little more Mad Max.
Well, yeah,
Mad
absolutely.
Max-esque if you want to.
And I'm so far. I think the answer to the question is it will be cool. People will be happy with it. Like I'm not going to do. There might be 1 table, and that's only if you go out of control. I don't want people. I want to be able to say this is the stats for my vehicle. This is what it does. How many? I don't want people to worry about how many 45-degree turns I can take if I go 20 inches.
Yeah.
Like no. Let's keep it simple. Let's make the vehicles complement the ground guys, because that's really where the fighting is. So, but yeah, and like I would say by the end of 2016 there will be vehicle rules and robots, and there'll be for the robots, they'll have their own equivalent mutations. Not mutations, but they'll be able to buy hardware and software. So if you want your extendo arms or your blade arms or a hover skirt, whatever you want to do.
Can I request rules for racing? That'd be awesome.
That will be a scenario. That kind of classic rolling hit, you pick the table up, keep going. Yeah, I really want to do that too. Take if that model falls off the board edge, he's gone.
Hey, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Not that I'm saying it's not a decisive improvement on your normal image, but we've lost your picture.
Oh, yeah. You can hear me, but you can't see me.
Yeah, I can see.
We do kind of like that.
We do see your likeness here in cartoon form, but.
Thank you. I'm looking at a web page, and I think when I'm doing other things, it turned off my camera. Hang on, I'll shut off the other window.
Turn off the Pornhub and come back to the conversation.
Well, he's probably doing the same thing I am, is looking on the Tabletop's website.
Oh Lord.
He is.
I need to reboot that website.
Post-apocalyptic stuff.
But
okay, hang on.
Off camera, if you guys have no problem with supplying rules, if you guys want to see the rules, I can just ship you copies.
Sure.
Just shoot me your emails. I'll send it to you in Rogan's vault.
That's cool. I've got one copy, Joe. But I'll pinch some artwork off you so I can throw it up in here if that's all right with you.
Yeah. Anything posted on the group, for instance, or if you need anything specific, Like I love that this is not the one you did. The one you did was really cool. The that Fallout looking the logo I had.
Oh, yep.
I love that. That's cool. I think one of my Dario did that. I absolutely love that picture.
That's cool. It's real cool.
Nobody owns the copyright to that screen.
Nice. So, are you playing a lot of Fallout 4, Joe?
Yes. I have logged, even with a baby, I've still managed to log probably a good work week into it.
Would that be why we can probably expect these books at the end of the year as opposed to now?
Has it hurt me?
Has it delayed you somewhat?
No. Honestly...
No! I'm very sheepish there.
You know what it has done is really helped me think through the campaigns, because the book after the Relic one is the campaign book, and that is where you have, the book has a campaign system in it. There's a full campaign system in the book. That's why it's 172 pages. Some people give it to you afterwards. The Wasteland deck is something I'm kind of proud of that as a game designer, how that works. But we're really going to do, the campaign book is going to be territories. You really need, food, resources. You got to marshal all of that. And Fallout 4 is really, building your settlements is really kind of giving me like, okay, this is giving me some ideas. And it also makes me want to think, okay, I need power armor upgrades now. Because you can modify your power armor. So I'm like, people are going to expect that. So that's going in the Relic book. That was a nice little addition. So
you draw a lot of inspiration from video games. Can you name a few movies that you've drawn inspiration for your game? I know there's a few.
So I would say, Mad Max. You start with it's like asking what's the best post-apocalyptic movie is kind of like the old joke of what's your favorite book, and anyone old school would say the Bible. Okay, well, let's get the Bible answer out of the way.
Not my favorite.
Well, no, I'm not bringing religion up, but that's always the joke. Like, for instance, the Bible from, I want to say from 1500s to now is still the greatest best-selling book every year.
I think because if you read something else, the Catholic Inquisition would burn you at the stake.
Like, what's the best-selling book every year? It's the Bible, just because that's the way it works. So that's the canon. So Mad Max, the trilogy, let's start with it kind of sets the tone for for the post-apocalyptic genre, that the zeitgeist of the post-apocalyptic genre is Mad Max. I will tell you that one of my favorite movies is Six String Samurai. If you've ever seen
love that movie.
I know, so fun. And like it's because it's the wasteland, there's crazy,
Nobody has seen that movie but me and you. Have you guys seen that movie?
Six String Samurai? No, but I've heard all about it.
I'm surprised I haven't.
It's a super low budget thing, but it's genius.
If you've ever you can buy miniatures from it. Brigade Games took some inspiration from that movie.
That's cool.
And they did a game called Atomic Cafe 1957, which was a post-apocalyptic game set literally 1957. So you've got your greasers. That movie has some really cool concepts. Like they've got like a bowling alley, like a state bowling champs are actually a war band. So they throw bowling balls and they use pins as clubs. And they've got derby girls, for instance. Just really cool ideas.
I remember this was a real low budget film. It was actually a bit of a piece of shit, but I enjoyed it. Was the old Jean-Claude Van Damme Cyborg? I quite like the concepts in that a little bit, even though it was basically built on the failure of Masters of the Universe 2. I enjoyed it for what it was worth. Have you guys seen it, Cyborg?
With
the slingers and the pirates. Yeah,
it's early Jean-Claude Van Damme, where you're still not sure he's not a gay porno star.
I enjoyed the early stuff. I have to admit, hand on the heart, I enjoyed the early JCVD stuff.
There is nothing wrong. I mean, I could, God, the numerous 80s bad post-apocalyptic movies. There's some stuff out of Italy. Oh, they're so bad, but they're so good. If there's a functioning plot, they failed almost. They tried a little too hard. character in the beginning is still in the end. Like it's like. Oh, I mean, I'll tell you honestly, a lot of my inspiration comes from video games are my strongest. My favorite part of the post-apocalypse is the retro. I love the retro futurism of the guys who figured out Fallout, nuclear powered cars.
Yeah, it's kind of Mad
I
Max meets
love
Happy
Art
Days,
Deco.
isn't it?
Like if you look at the Knights of Dice are coming out with some like terrain that's all Art Deco looking.
Yeah.
That style is how I prefer. In the post-apocalypse, that's what it looks. Overwrought, over-engineered, And who does a really good job of that is Drop Zone Horizon, the Resistance stuff.
Oh, yeah.
You seen those?
Yep, then 10 mil.
And millimeter. Oh man, it's gorgeous. That in my head, that's kind of that's what everything should look like. So, but like and like comics, which I have it right there. Xenozoic, Cadillacs and Dinosaurs. That's the official name. One of my favorite book, one of the inspirations for the Preserver movement in the book is the Order of Canticle for Leibowitz, which if you guys have, I've read. I honestly will say I've read a lot more post-apocalyptic fiction than actual movies.
Yeah.
So I can name like 12 books off the top of my head. Like go read them right now. Go read Alas Babylon. Go read, Canticle of Leibowitz, The Horse Lords. Go, yeah. Go read all that fun stuff.
So Joe,
have you read the? Sorry, I was like, have you read the Dies? What is it? Dies the Fire? What is that? Is that Sterling?
I don't think so.
They're fairly new. There's like 8 or 9 of them. It's a weird conceit that all of a sudden combustion and gunpowder stop working. And
is that the one where it's like the Society for Creative Anachronism?
Yeah, but yeah. So I've tried to read them and I can't get into them, but a lot of people really like those.
I've heard that, and I don't want to tell people that what they're reading is wrong.
Sure. Yeah.
But I kind of looked at it, it just never caught me.
Yep.
Like I didn't like when I read the Cannibal of Leibowitz, I was like, that just grabbed me. Just this concept, just.
What about the Road by Cormac McCarthy?
Oh man, that is
it's dark.
Wonderfully written, but that is.
I wanted to throw myself off a building after watching that film.
It's really.
You think the film is bad? You should try reading the book because the book is even bleaker and worse than the movie. There's a bunch of scenes in the book that are not in the movie. Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah. I read. I was familiar with the book first. I think it's Cormac McCarthy, who was kind of an insane person to begin with.
Yeah, is he still alive? Or did he top himself up?
Would you guys consider Soylent Green a post-apocalyptic movie? Have you seen that?
Yep.
Old movie. It's like the first post-apocalyptic movie I could think of, like the oldest one. It's Gregory Peck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And by the end of the movie, you find out everybody's eating
themselves.
Yep.
Hey, you gotta do it. Who am I to judge a society that works?
And I thought A Clockwork Orange felt post-apocalyptic when I was a little kid, but it's more just kind of dark, futuristic. There's no apocalypse.
Well, it's kind of a where does dystopia, futuristic dystopia versus post-apocalypse, and there's a lot of crossover,
Yeah.
So
Book of Eli was kind of good. I liked Book of Eli.
Book of Eli, I enjoyed that. Yep.
I've never seen that either. I gotta admit I have not seen that. I know the basic story.
You figure it out.
It's a good film.
Into the movie.
Yeah, you do.
Pay attention.
There's 2 recent ones I kind of like that nobody's seen. One you might have seen is, have you seen Stakeland? The vampire movie. It's a low-budget vampire movie. It's called Stakeland.
As in steak in the heart?
Yes. Stake. That
Not
movie
like steak.
is genius. I've seen that 2 or 3 times. So Six String Samurai, Stakeland. And the other one is, what's it called? The Day, with Dominic Monaghan. He's one of the Hobbits. No, it's not. Yeah, he's one of the Hobbits.
Movie?
Do what?
Is that an Australian movie?
It might be, but it's like 11 years after the apocalypse, and it's this group of travelers that come across this house, and they're the last 5 of a group of 40, whatever. They've got like 2 bullets each because it's that point, and they come under attack. It's not the greatest movie, but it's kind of fun. So, Six String Samurai, Stakeland, and The Day. Those are my 3.
Okay. Yeah.
Dominic Monaghan was pretty much the only Hobbit who actually ended up with a hot chick after the series, wasn't he?
That's true.
He went out for Evangeline Lilly or something.
That's true.
And all the other three are just of questionable sexual orientation. Just an observation I'm putting out there.
Sean Astin has kids. Man.
Food for thought. It doesn't,
Samwise.
these days, mate, that doesn't qualify for anything.
Anyway, moving on.
Moving on. Okay, so once you've digested Fallout 4, Joe, and you've translated it into the perfection that is, this is not a test version 2, and they release Fallout 5, does that mean for the next sort of 10, 15 years you're just going to be dwelling in the post-apocalyptic universe, or are you going to tempt fate and dabble your hands into other theatres, genres, periods? What? Where do you see yourself as a rules designer now, having officially stamped your mark?
Designer. So World's End Publishing, the company, as the name tells you, I'm kind of shoehorning myself a little bit into the post-apocalypse, but there's a lot of room there. So one of the things I really want to do is my own fantasy rules. That takes inspiration. So move TNT up 1,000 years. Most technology's gone. You still have a few things, kind of like Thundar the Barbarian, that kind of super science but magic. Where like mutant powers, they're no longer kind of this generic sci-fi psychic stuff. They become magic to people at this point, and I don't have, and a great book is Hero's Journey. And it was a series that was never finished, unfortunately, but it kind of had that kind of fantasy trope to it. But, there was the, ancient, I love the concept of the ancients, in TNT, there's the last Americans. It's about 100 years ago when the apocalypse happened. I don't tell you the year that TNT takes place. It's 20XX. It's 21XX. The world ended on September 9th, 2077, which is exactly 100 years after my birthday. That's why I chose that date. But, and then there's a lot of so I'd love to do. I was thinking about a TNT board game. Kind of in the back of my head, like a vault crawler or something like, like a Warhammer Quest or Descent, that type of game, going into a shelter, those big ones. Cool. I've got there's a couple Easter eggs hidden in the rule book that people haven't asked me about yet, where some things shouldn't make sense, but I'm not going to reveal them because that's half the fun. You're like, let me explain this, and they're like, oh, that's why that's that way. So, so I'm looking forward to doing that kind of stuff. And I might leave the genre completely. I'm looking at maybe doing something more sci-fi, but I don't have anything like 100% yet. Okay. I don't, keeping TNT going is a lot of work.
Yeah.
So, like, trying to do another rule set would be like, oh boy, that would be hard to do. And I'm not saying that I won't, because I kind of enjoy, like,
the process.
I'm coming late to being a rules writer, but I'm actually really loving it. And I'm like, just being able to, create ways for people to have fun is really rewarding. So, what I do, I've got a couple ideas on how to modify TNT for other genres. So, like fantasy, or maybe do a more, more mainstream sci-fi look. I really love, like, Harold Clear Horizon Games stuff is really cool looking, that hard edge sci-fi. That might, maybe come up with rules. I'm like looking, how can I modify the activation system to do units?
Yep.
Then I can do, a full war game with lots of vehicles and stuff like that. So, but for the most part, the answer to the question is I'm not really. I'm mainly sticking with TNT just to keep that going. Like, let me get the main stuff out of the way first. Let me give you robots, let me do your vehicles, let me do your mutant animals, mutant plants, all that stuff that I really want to do that's in the genre but I haven't been able to do yet. So I've got at least a year and a half of stuff that I want to do. And then when that year and a half is up, I don't know when you would call a game complete until you get into the next, okay, TNT 2.0 is ready to go, we've had 6 years of figuring things out, and we're like, well, we could tweak things or something. I don't know, but let me get to the game where I'm like, okay, people could reasonably do a good post-apocalyptic, whatever. If it's a post-apocalyptic, they want to do it. TNT will let them do it, and I'm like, okay, then we can kind of not shelf it, but we can slow releases, keep pulling miniatures, but the main stuff is done. When it's like once you've done 40K in fantasy, GW doesn't have to work too hard. You got to keep those going. Then they do special. Let's do some fun stuff off to the side, see where that goes, and that's kind of where I am.
Yeah, that's cool. Do you guys just getting off the note a bit? That Patrick Swayze movie, where he was like, it was a post-apocalyptic movie. I forgot the name. No, not Postman. No, that's Kevin Costner.
Oh, shit, you're right.
Patrick Swayze did a movie set in like the bleak desert, and he's like a ex-captain of the army or something, and he's kick-ass with a sword. And there's this other dude who was another captain of the army, who's a bad dude, and he's also kick-ass with a sword. I can't remember. There's post-apocalyptic.
I've seen something like that.
Is it Iron Dawn or something like that? Oh.
Yeah, hold on. I have a friend, Grant, that actually worked in that movie. I used to make fun of him for it.
I remember that movie being quite good. For
Steel
a
Dawn.
Steel Dawn. Steel Dawn. That's interesting. I enjoyed it.
No, it's not a good movie, but you should still watch it.
It's not a good movie at all, but I enjoy lots of really shit movies. Hence Cyborg. Now, I think we're coming to an end, guys. Before I'll do the final questions, I'll ask the question that everyone's been waiting for. Joe, you ready for this one?
Okay.
What do you think of the new Star Wars movie?
Oh, that's a trick question. I liked it. Seeing a Star Wars movie, there are problems you could drive a semi-trailer through, but my honest opinion was I enjoyed it.
Okay, you're in good company. We like you. You can stay.
All right, good.
I wasn't going to upload this if you had said...
You can do some fair criticisms of it, absolutely, and there are people very mad, justified so. But...
I think they're crazy. I think there's only one flaw in the movie, and the rest I think is fine. Everybody's got their opinion, but
what's the flaw?
Yeah, what's the flaw, Josh?
So my one flaw with the movie is purely, and this is Star Wars, I know since this is dumb to say, a scientific flaw, and that's the fact that when the First Order fires at the Hosnin system, they fire their beam through hyperspace. Somehow on Takodana, because I know all these planet names now, as we're standing outside Maz's castle, we see a beam that is blowing up planets in another solar system, and that beam splits and curves into 7 things and blows up the planet and moons. And that is the dumbest thing on the planet to me, but other than that, I'm fine with it.
See, it's just a good thing that not everyone in the world has an astrophysics major.
I think the fairest criticism was they borrowed the formula from the first 3 of. I think that's fair. I still enjoy the movie. I think that's a fair criticism.
Not to jump in and argue. I actually don't think it's fair, and the reason I don't think it's fair is, in my mind, this is. Sure, it's episode 7, but I think of it more of a passing of a baton and the start of a new generation. Like this is like a little singularity point that Disney's going to grow everything off of, and so you kind of take a remake. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, if they're following that model, this would have ended like A New Hope ended, where it's like kind of a contained story. The thing blows up, and it's like
right, but it ends
more like Empire Strikes Back. Where one of them is ended.
Right, but it's kind of a remake of the first, just to here's a reset point, right? And so to me, it makes a lot of sense.
Oh yeah, I agree with you totally.
Yeah.
So I think his gripe is Chewbacca looked like a cosplay Chewbacca. He didn't look scruffy enough. Like he looked the coolest.
I wish they would have aged him a little bit.
He was old and sophisticated. Get off his case.
Remember in Empire Strikes Back, his hair is like he has like kind of scruffy, cool hair, and this one he's too clean.
He was going through a grunge phase.
Remember the Wookiee from the older Wookiee from the prequels with the kind of like the dreads worked in, where like he's clearly older. That it's 30 years. He should have some gray.
Like the Wookiee elders.
I would love that.
Yeah,
just a slightly different take.
Some tribal fetishes and stuff like that.
Yeah, this is like all right. This guy's been, I'm sure he takes great care of his hair. I'm sure he moisturizes and
Well, we all go through our Nirvana stage, guys.
I loved it. I sat there. I've seen it like the whole movie, I'm sitting there, there's like a stupid fucking grin on my face.
I got a little giddy during the space flights. You know, X-Wings and TIE fighters. I was like, yeah.
when the Millennium Falcon comes up off the planet for the first time when Rey's piloting, I will admit I welled up a little bit.
Yeah.
Falcon was good.
And the 5-year-old in me squeed.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, when
It's
you
funny,
hear
every time I've seen
TIE
it.
Fighters the first time.
Oh, yeah.
The scream of the TIE Fighter.
Oh yeah.
Dude, man, shit, I can... The synergy
The end
between...
kind of bothered me. Spoiler alert. She just climbs a mountain and catches Luke pissing off a cliff. And it's like a spin around shot.
Oh yeah, the spin around shot could have. You didn't need that shot.
The synergy between Poe Dameron and Finn in the first 5 minutes of that film eclipsed anything between Obi-Wan and Anakin in all 3 of the prequels.
Yep.
That was like, fuck yeah, these guys are serious about it. This film's gonna rock. And
they all did good.
J.J. Abrams smashed it as far as I'm concerned. You know,
I didn't even mind emo Kylo Ren. I thought he was fine.
Yeah, he was cool. Yeah, you know, Darth Tantrum, but he was pretty cool.
You know,
when he was having his little rants and shit and stuff was flying out of the bulkheads and the 2 stormtroopers come marching around and they sort of see it and they, fuck this, let's get out of here. Let's take that lunch break. It was classy.
I love Han Solo shooting Chewbacca's bowcaster.
Yeah. I mean, it's taken him...
One of my favorite parts.
It took him 4 episodes to start actually asking for a tune.
That presumes he's never shot it in the 30 years they've been hanging out.
Yeah, it's like, ooh, I might give this a go.
Have you seen the cartoon that was going around yesterday, the multi-panel cartoon of Chewbacca and young Kylo Ren?
Oh, yeah.
It's this...
He's stabbed with a snowman?
No. It's Chewbacca with... Ben Solo, so Kylo Ren is a kid, and they're hanging out, and they're, having a good time, and it's like a bunch of panels, and then it cuts to, Kylo Ren storming off, and then it's the Han Solo, Kylo Ren on the bridge, and Kylo stabs Han, and you see, they draw Chewie looking through his crosshairs, and he's aiming right at Kylo Ren's head, but he flashes back to, he knew Kylo Ren as a kid, and he moves the crosshair down to his side and shoots him in the side. Like, he doesn't have the heart to kill him. It's actually a really, really good panel of... I'll send it to you guys.
Yeah.
Somehow.
That would make sense to me. I totally buy that he wouldn't kill him.
Right, because he would have known him as a kid, right?
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to put this in our Facebook chat.
Well, that's where the gravitas comes from.
Right.
No, I saw a cool, a Calvin and Hobbes style cartoon, just a single image, and it had a baby Kylo Ren in all his suit and his red saber and shit, and he had stabbed all these snowmen. So there's all these snowmen lying dead everywhere. And there's Han and Leia, and Han just turning to Leia and going, he takes after your side of the family.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I posted in our Facebook group, and I apologize to the viewers, but you should go out and find the cartoon.
Will do.
I'll share it to the TNT group. How's that?
Well, guys, we're up at an hour 30. Are there any sort of final parting questions and stuff before we wrap this one up?
No.
Boner?
I think I've talked long enough. I hate the sound of my own voice. So.
We hate it, too.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us, Joe.
Yeah, Joe, it's been awesome, mate.
Thank you. I appreciate it, guys.
Appreciate it, sir.
Let's touch base again soon, and I'll talk to you about those things very soon.
Yep.
Awesome, guys.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, gents. Thanks, everyone, for listening. This is episode 1 for the new year, 2016. We're going to continue the flow every sort of fortnight, maybe more, maybe less. Hopefully not less. But going through 2016 should be good times. So thanks for listening, and
Go see Star Wars.
go see Star Wars. See you, Joe. See you, Josh.
All right,
See you,
Hey,
Boner.
guys.
Later, dudes.